You know, I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. You know what I realize? Ignorance is bliss.
Yankees suck! Yankees suck! Yankees suck! Yankees suck! Yankees suck!
They're the same picture.
Kevin has the best life, a sitcom life. Whatever he does and wherever he goes, he's followed by a laugh track, oversaturated lighting, constant punchlines, and lack of consequences.
Hey, me! Guess what I got? Ding-a-ding-ding! Oh, simple Allison. This is all a part of my master plan. I'm auditioning Tom Brady lookalikes for the party. I'm running for office.
His wife, Allison, has to live in the real world as well, where she has to live with the actual consequences of Kevin's carefree schemes. So she decides to kill Kevin.
Nobody thinks that we're leaving, but I promise you.
The account's empty. The weekly savings thing, it's gone. How many times a week does a package come to this house? All you gotta do is pay attention.
During the first season, Allison tries to get Kevin to overdose on OxyContins, hire a contract killer, and when we get to the second season, fake her own death. While all of this happens, our point of view keeps jumping between the Kevin sitcom world and the more grounded, dramatic real world. That would be the format in a nutshell. But what makes Kevin can fuck himself more than this gimmick is what it isn't. It's not a satire about sitcoms, it's not self-aware, and it's not nihilistic. The not being satire part surprised me when I found out how the sitcom parts were filmed. It's not just a laugh track, but made with a real studio audience. You'd think the laugh track worked like you're watching those Lynchian bunnies.
When did you go out?
I have known since I was 7.
That audience only saw the sitcom parts, the small fraction of the series where everything is sunshine and rainbows, while the more dramatic parts border on misery porn. The creators of the show not only decided not to mock sitcoms or their audience, they took the harder road and made a sitcom that had to be funny enough without further context. This also presents some challenges because of how likable Kevin is made to be.
Is that blood? It doesn't mean you get to be moody. You already used that excuse once this month.
Some of those jokes were actually funny. I would search for them if I didn't give myself an arbitrary deadline for finishing this video in one day.
I'm not like a brother. No, you're more like a cousin who just got out of jail for stalking. Everyone's secretly kind of hoping he goes back.
How is Keith?
Bad.
Dad, I know how you love drinking.
I really do.
Wait, that's not funny. It's not satire, it just happens to use the same language. And the fact that no character ever acknowledges the absurdity of these situations or winks at the camera was also the more challenging task, but they did it anyway. There was an easy way, but they took the more timeless way. Not being nihilistic part is what I appreciate most. With this format, I'd be just fine if the series chose an approach that was just the darkest. Everything is terrible forever. Half-assed surface-level Nietzsche quotes. Linkin Park. Teenage Rick Sanchez. Alan Rickman as Marvin. All that jazz. But instead, when it talks about things that are awful in real world, it concentrates into subject matters that could have been avoided and could be fixed.
Oh! Oh, shit.
You okay?
Wait, this guy overdosed?
There's no type for this sort of thing anymore. All kinds of people OD.
Really?
Sure.
So, like anyone.
Yeah, grandmas, frat kids, 3 of my cousins. I remember the last time I was shocked by an Oxy OD.
When Allison gets the idea of killing Kevin with OxyContin, a large part of the subtext of the first season comes to be about the opioid epidemic. Hunting for this occasionally legal pain medicine, Allison ends up roaming through the shady underbelly of the city where the line between oxydependency and heroin addiction fluctuates. We meet many miserable people who have reached the bottom of this system that always plays its cards against them. Best example is the assassin Allison hires to kill Kevin. Why is he ready to kill a person for a few $1,000s? Because of how prisons work and how terrible the justice system is in its efforts of helping criminals from returning to their facilities. This guy has gotten out of prison, so what is he doing now?
Customer sent this back.
What, why? Well, that's cheese, you dumbass.
Who gives a shit?
Who had time for this?
Oh, Jesus.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
Shit.
Get some ice! Some ice! Go home.
You can't fire me. They'll throw me in prison. You really gonna do that?
That was an assault. As far as I'm concerned, Walpole can have you.
Can I at least have a day? A day before my parole officer finds out about this, okay?
Do you think you're in a position to negotiate right now?
What was the thing that got him into prison for the first time? Most likely he was selling a drug that wasn't legal on that exact moment. It's almost like prisons shouldn't exist to make profit. He fails in his assassination attempt, by the way. Kevin manages to shoot him by dumb luck, and he spends the rest of the series lying in a coma until he dies off screen. This dude could have been just a generic junkie, but they went through all this extra effort. You aren't supposed to shrug it off either. It's later spelled to us, so we know exactly what this man's situation was.
Well, it's easy to call him a lowlife, but he isn't much different than any other guy in this town.
When Allison spends enough time in the more unflattering parts of her hometown, that hometown also turns into a major character of this story. Worcester.
Worcester's.
It never stops sounding like a pile of Irish cheese wearing a trench coat pretending to be a city. Worcester is a slum-ridden, run-down city in Massachusetts, near Boston. This show turns to be very Bostonian. Maybe the most Bostonian thing to ever exist until Good Will Hunting is remade and Bill Burr plays every role. When we aren't shown the ruins of forgotten suburbs, we can listen to these hyper-Bostonian accents defining their identity by tying it to the hometown teams and hating the rival teams.
What is our one house rule?
Yankees suck.
Tom Brady tends to be the saint that receives most worship. His sport ball moments and Red Sox and Celtics are what everyone's attention is drawn onto while the world crumbles outside. Brady is like Rutger Hauer, and this series is just like Spetters. It's an apt comparison. Some of you might have seen it. What even are professional sports, other than dudes who go to work for pay and it's later our work as fans to create a narrative around them? Where am I even going with this? I really don't remember.
Nice execution.
You're doing terrific.
When we reach the second season, Kevin's best friend Neil also gets his own character arc. He's pulled into the real world and begins to see how Kevin can be an abusive monster who only thinks of himself. Neil is a simple man, but he does begin to understand that he can never be the protagonist. The story can never be about him. Not as long as he's with Kevin. This part could be seen as a commentary for the abuse of mentally disabled. Second season turns his role from, let's say, the brother from My Name is Earl or Patrick Star to more tragic figure like Torgo or John Isidore. It was pretty early on that I couldn't ignore the parallels I saw between this series and The Matrix. This doesn't mean any sort of simulation thing, but how the main plot points proceed. When we begin this journey, Allison tries to get rid of Kevin without telling anyone about it. She does soon tell about her plan to Patty, Neil's sister and part of Kevin's gang. This reveal comes after Patty has been made to be a part of her plan in a way that Patty can no longer just walk away from. Allison has already taken the pill where she chooses the real world. There was an easier option, where waking every morning with Kevin could keep her safe in that world of no true consequences. Allison doesn't have a grand plan that makes her post-Kevin life something great. She does dumb things and suffers consequences. But the possibility of control is a goal in itself. Though she has chosen that possibility of control over her safety, Patty is now forced to make that same choice. Patty is sort of like Cypher eating steak with Agent Smith. She is just as willing to choose stagnation. It is so much easier.
I wake up, I go to the salon, I come home, I watch a game with the guys. In between, there are a few Dunkies, coffees, and a pack of Menthols.
You're okay with that?
Everyone knows what their life's gonna look like in 10, 20 years. Pretending things will change is how they sell washing machines.
Here, our Neo gets an ally of Cypher. Allison quickly understands she can't win this system alone. It would be like Neo fighting against the agents without ever making friends outside the simulation. After the OxyContin plan fails and the assassination fails, Allison spent Season 2 planning to fake her own death. When Neil is pulled onto the world with consequences, it's like Allison gets Agent Smith as an unwilling ally. Outside world has limited appeal for Neil. He easily falls into binders, he has no money, he can't hold onto a job, and has been arrested multiple times. Whenever he abandons his personal agency, being with Kevin instantly make him into this lovable goofball.
And it's got your name on it, so legally it belongs to you.
Wow, your grasp of the legal system is so interesting.
My public defender said the same thing.
Welcome to the desert of the...
It's kinda like that one idea that Matrix had in its first draft. When you go into the simulated world, it doesn't just give you hair and punching skills. You could even spend your time in the Matrix as the opposing sex. Or whatever it is that you really want. Getting Kevin's best friend to end that friendship does kinda make it easier to defeat him. I'm not going to spoil the ending, so... Like in the end of Matrix Revolutions, to defeat the system you can't destroy it yourself. The system has to defeat itself. The system has to choose to lose. I guess that's a spoiler-free enough way to describe the ending. The important thing is that it doesn't end like Blazing Saddles. I heard about this series after it had already ended. It's for an acquired taste for sure, but during the first few episodes I really thought that internet would just instantly fall in love with this thing. But no. I saw during the following episodes that this isn't really a series that the internet would love, but the kind that Reddit would love, since it does give few enthusiasts a lot to speculate and theorize. Is this purgatory? Is Kevin God? Does it make Allison the devil because she took 1/3 of God's angels with her to rather reign in hell than to serve in heaven? Is this just like the Eye in the Sky or Bender's Game, where it's a big Dungeons and Dragons campaign and the dungeon master is an oblivious idiot god?
This whole game is rigged!
Or is the whole thing just about abusive and toxic relationships, and the sitcom world is just Allison's way of processing trauma that it creates? Yes, it's likely just that. It's kinda explained in this flashback. So the closest recent comparison thematically would be something like... That's not guaranteed mainstream appeal. Not enough naked Rory Kinnear. 0 out of 10.
TV! It knows what I want!
Sometimes that toxic relationship can be between you and your law enforcement, or between you and addictive meds, or between a simpleton and an abusive friend, or between you and alcohol, Or between two people who are only together because they fear the idea of being alone. Well darn, those sneaky buggers held onto a meaningful theme through the series. This sort of speculation doesn't instantly translate to being loved worldwide. Sitcom world and the drama world make each other feel more absurd, but they do require each other. You can't get too much memorable material that would work without context. In short, it's not memeable. It's never over the top enough to create a scene or a shot that could be used as a shorthand for an emotion. It has to remain too grounded for that.
You both drove 3 full hours to eat at Top Dog, and you didn't bring a burger back for me? Unforgivable.
You what?
Wait, that's not really funny either. I also have a theory of my own about this series. It's much more cynical than all those others. It goes as follows. They shot the first season that was full of sad human fates created by the opioid pandemic. Then they contacted Purdue and the Sackler family. Listen, you are pure evil. If you somehow give us an excessive amount of cash, we won't advertise this series, and we won't make the second season to be about opioids. Is that too far-fetched? Sitcoms make money by staying on season after season. This was made with a plot that really can't continue beyond a certain point. I hope the creators did get that dirty big pharma money, because this series will stay with me for a long time. I think I got through everything I wanted to say. Now, should you watch Kevin Can Fuck Himself? That I don't know. Have you ever watched It's Always Sunny gang arguing in that pub of theirs and just felt that this would be improved if it was written by Charlie Kaufman and Katsuo Ishiguro at gunpoint? And occasionally we'd cut to Cricket smoking crack in a quiet dark alley.
It's just like my life! In a way.